Aha, I think that did it.
It's setting it up right now, so give it a few seconds, I think.
Okay. All right. I got a thumbs up.
All right, we're on.
We're on. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the wasmCloud community meeting for Wednesday, January 10th. Was I here last week? No, I wasn't. I think this is my first community meeting of 2024. Woo. And I'd like to celebrate because for both of these days, we have not accidentally put 2023. So we're starting off on a pretty good note, honestly. It's good. I don't know if you all are putting your old year on your new school assignments. Anyways, let's go ahead and get started. We have a pretty quick agenda today, but it should be pretty fun. Might spur some good discussion. First off, I have a demo that I'm shamelessly stealing from Victor, who put in a PR to run a TypeScript Hello World WebAssembly component in wasmCloud. So same kind of structure as our other Hello World examples for Rust and Go, just in TypeScript, and kind of continues the language support experimentation that we're doing here at wasmCloud. Then I think we can go into a little check-in on the roadmap. We're going to be rapidly pushing wasmCloud to 1.0 as we've pretty much identified our core sets of features. So it may not be every community meeting that we do this style of check-in, but I like to be checking in on the roadmap really frequently, just to make sure that we're on track there. And specifically, I wanted to bring up one of the bigger pieces, bigger breaking changes that is coming soon in this control interface RFC. So we'll get all into that. First thing, of course, is the demo. And like I said, shamelessly stole this one. Thank you so much, Victor, for putting this in and getting us a TypeScript slash JavaScript component example. And this one uses the JCO slash componentized.js tool chain coming out of the Bytecode Alliance to build an actor that works in wasmCloud. Now, if we take a look at some of the files here, I'm going to actually run through this demo here in a second. Um, yeah, thank you, Victor. I'm going to run through this here in a second. The README is exactly everything that you need to know. And this works with wasmCloud 0.81, which is out now, out of the box. So you can actually go and try this in this PR if you check it out. But it should be merged into main here pretty soon. But if we take a look at the actual TypeScript code, this is what I wanted to show. You can see it's really, really similar to the other Hello World component examples that we have. And this is going to be a common theme. It's really neat that when we generate types from WIT, we use the WIT bindgen toolchain for that associated language. You get really similar functions and handlers and primitives no matter what language you're writing in. Now, this is a little bit different from like the end goal of what we want this all to look like, which we touched on a little bit, I think two community meetings ago, the last one where I was talking, where, eventually instead of working with some of these primitives like for WASI HTTP, where we are writing out a body to say hello from TypeScript and setting the status code and things like that. This would be done with the language tool chains HTTP handler of choice, for TypeScript and JavaScript. If you're making an HTTP request, it would just be using the fetch API, right? But we're working towards that, and that is going to be a really fun piece of progress to keep showing. So without further ado, why don't I go ahead and walk through this example and show you what it looks like. So got my good old trusty terminal over here. I zoomed in a little bit, but it doesn't hurt to make it fully. I don't know if that's actually PC to say, but everybody should be able to see this. It should be large enough. So this is just the README in the repo as is in the PR. And it's got a bunch of information on the dependencies that you need and, some more information about like TypeScript and WASI HTTP. So big props to Victor. I think this is going to be a really great format of README to have. for people who know TypeScript and are new to the ecosystem. It's like, hey, I recognize all of these things from we're using all standard things. So you do need Wash and NPM installed, which is standard for the wasmCloud ecosystem and then the Node or TypeScript ecosystem. And to get started, you just have to run npm install. That will install the basic Node dependencies in this project. Um, uh-oh, I'm not gonna get into tooling discussions right now. So we start with npm install, and then I'm pretty sure I have everything dead in the background. We can start a new wasmCloud host with wash up. This version of Wash is just the latest installed one, so you can follow along if you'd like. Once that is running, oh no, I think I might have. Let me clean up something from the previous run because I want to run through this all the way. I forgot that I kind of did this beforehand. So, oh, nice, Victor. Okay, so we have the host running, right? We just have wasmCloud is ready. And we can actually use wash build in order to build this actor completely just in that one command. So the same stuff that we are doing for Rust and Go. But you can actually see when we run wash build, we kick off a couple of processes here. And the way that this works, if we take a look at the wasmCloud.toml, you can see that this is kind of commented out here. We have, we're essentially faking the language here, but there's actually a new PR that should go in today that lets you put whatever you want for the language. The way that this works is Wash will infer the build command and where the output WebAssembly component is based on these fields in the wasmCloud.toml. So you run wash build under the hood. That is just running npm run build. So of course you can also just run npm run build. Both of those will result in the same thing, but we're really trying to keep that user experience consistent no matter what language, no matter what toolchain. Okay, now that we have an actor component, we can take this path. We can take a look. We can inspect it and see that it is signed with regular wasmCloud things. And we can also use the dash dash wit flag to take a look at the wit world that's in this component. So you can look and see that we're importing a couple things from like WASI.io and WASI clocks. We're exporting the WASI HTTP incoming handler. So all standard interfaces, which is really cool because you can use wasmtime to do wasmtime serve with the common WASI dependencies. And we can serve this WebAssembly component that we've built with wash build that was made, written in TypeScript. We curl localhost 8080. We get hello from TypeScript. Very fun stuff. So that's it running in wasmtime. In order to run this in wasmCloud, as you know, what we do a lot around here is we really like our declarative applications. So we have this manifest that sets everything up for the wasmCloud host to be able to know how to run it. And specifically, instead of directly opening up like an HTTP port with WASI HTTP, we specifically use a HTTP capability provider, which I think I see maybe some new people on the call. So I'm really trying to put this at the best level of, and this could be really useful for anybody tuning in. We use this HTTP server capability provider to kind of decouple that capability from the application itself. So we don't use any specific HTTP port or configuration inside of the component itself. Instead, we use a provider, and then we use this link definition to supply the address that we want to listen on for the component. So now that we have this manifest that just lays out all those pieces for the application, what we can do is wash app deploy that TypeScript Wadham manifest. I believe Victor also, I'm trying to do too many things and type at the same time. Victor also has a really nice helper script in here if you're used to using npm like as your script runner. So you can just do npm run wadum start or npm run wadum stop. But once we deploy this manifest, if we check out the running components on our wasmCloud host, you can see that I have the TypeScript hello world component that we just built from my local file system, the HTTP server, and then I think I actually might have another application deployed that runs NATS messaging, but you don't need that for this one. Now, if we curl localhost 8081, which is where our wasmCloud HTTP server is listening on, we get hello from TypeScript. So this is essentially the full end-to-end example of going from install to build to applying the Wadum manifest and declaratively launching that. All this information that I'm running through, I essentially tried to follow along the README as close as possible because that's what everybody else is going to be doing. So if you all get to check this one out and have any thoughts, please let me know. But this is, excuse me, this is the kind of next step in our language exploration. So I want to touch on one more thing before I pause for questions. You all may have noticed in the wasmCloud documentation that we've added a lot of additional information. I don't think I could run through all of it in this call. I want to give a special shout out to Bailey and to Connor, who have been doing a ton of work in the wasmCloud documentation side, including this nice concepts page and additional information in the developer guide, like creating actor components and all those things. But what I wanted to call out specifically before we got started is now in the quick start. We essentially have a really nice ability to let people pick their language and then proceed through the tutorials in the language of their choice now that we support components. So we started with Rust and TinyGo because those are the things we've had support for a long time. We are experimenting with things like TypeScript, JavaScript, Python. I know that like C and maybe I know that like C already has like great support for WebAssembly, so that wouldn't be, a huge effort to add to the quick start. But if you are working in some of these languages and you're running through this and you don't prefer to work in Rust or TinyGo, please check out this form. It should be in a couple pages in the documentation. All we're really asking for is an email to prevent a bunch of bots spamming the form, but it doesn't put you on an emailing list. And then I don't know if you can see this drop down when I click on it. But if you prefer working in a different language, just select it here and let us know. So TypeScript is an option here. And what we want to do on the wasmCloud side is use this information to inform what languages we should write experimental first quick starts in, what languages we should support, similar to Rust and TinyGo as like our tier one languages where Wash build knows what to do by default. We have all of our examples, essentially written in some form of that language, all of those things. So TypeScript example, very fun. Call to action if you prefer working in a different language to please let us know. I can't promise that we're going to add every language to every tier of support, but the more information that we have, the better we can be informed to say, hey, in addition to Rust and TinyGo, here is our next language that we provide a lot of documentation and examples for.
Hey
Okay.
Brooks,
Yeah.
do you mind talking through some other cool things that you've added in Wash with the build command where, hey, if we don't know how to build it, are we able to build something for a language we don't support yet?
Yeah, that's a great question. And let me see if I have any documentation for this, because any average person who is looking for this would say, hey, you should go to the documentation. So if you select my language isn't listed, you know what? Actually, let's do that because I'm pretty proud of how this works. If you select my language isn't listed, you'll get some more information as you go through the documentation. But if you go over to build, Wash build also has some information here under my language isn't listed. It's such a bland. Where if you are working with a language that's not Rust or TinyGo, you know what we expect. I've got some details here on the, essentially the escape hatch in wasmCloud.toml. So talking a little bit through earlier with Victor's example, all you need to do is override the build command and then let wash know where the built component is going to be. And then it can essentially shell that command out for you and sign it. So all good stuff. I don't know if I have other stuff. Same form here as well. Um, but yeah, we've been working a lot on our documentation lately. And if it's been a little while since you checked it out, now is a great time to go take a look. Any other questions?
Brooks, I see that we've got one of our new contributors here on the call, Nick. Hi, Nick.
Cool, cool. I'm
Your
trying
audio
to
is interesting. But Brooks, do you mind bringing up this link on your screen for one of the contributions that Nick's been working on?
No, not at all. You're not pranking me, right? This isn't like a.
Totally not a prank. Here's a random Netlify URL. Just trust me, bro.
have you not memorized the Rick Astley YouTube URL yet? Can you hear me right now?
Yeah, yeah, sounds great. And really nice
Yes.
to meet you, Nick.
Very
Thanks
good.
for your time. Would you like to say a little bit about this super cool looking Netlify page that I see here?
Yeah, so I had some time over Christmas and I like to draw stuff and I love Excalibur. So I took your previous page and just played around with it a bit and did a bit of theming and stuff. I think the rest of the documentation, the thing I like the most is the dark mode. So it's just a little bit bolder, same content as before, slight oh, kind of minor changes to the CSS and stuff. But hey, man, it was Christmas. It was really relaxing. So there's going to be PR once we sort out the media queries, make it work on devices that are smaller than laptops. But yeah, you got clouds, and you got little wasmCloud crates. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah, but this looks nice. Oh.
Yeah. I spent some time just going through the documentation from scratch. And we can have a chat offline, got a bit of feedback. But yeah, I'm really happy with where this has landed as long as you guys are. It should be over with you in a couple of days.
Dick, this is awesome. I had no idea that this was coming. Thank you so much. I will take a PR for this as soon as you have it in a space that you're happy. I'm sorry for doing the thing that all web developers hate, which is collapsing from the left. Test and see how it looks. But
I forgive you. Yeah, you're welcome, man. We'll chat in a couple of days. I think I'm flying out to NYC tomorrow, but I'll try and get it in before then. I might even finish it on the plane.
that sounds awesome. Yeah, feel free to throw up that. I know you said there was going to be a PR, but feel free to put up a draft PR or even before it's all ready. If there's just like some last little things, happy to help get it across the line.
Cool.
But this is really sweet looking. You draw these in Excalibur? All the little.
Yeah, I love Excalibur more than I should. It's a nice aesthetic.
Yeah, it really
Nick, I think
is.
it's pretty awesome, man. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. You're not an elf anymore.
I'm always an elf on the inside.
Yeah, we like Excalibur too, but the stuff that I put out doesn't look
Oh,
as
it's
good as
nice.
this.
It's nice. I mean, the thing about it is, I think I've got I just want to make a little global function that swaps out the dark mode Excalibur alternative images as long as you've still got them in Excalibur format. That's one of the things it does really nicely. So you can have your blog posts with either just do like a hue rotate thing, but you could have dark mode all the things. You know, dark mode's important as you always point out. So
Yeah, I don't actually. I think in our documentation, I did some weird stuff to make it basically look like the image to just look okay, whether it's dark mode or light mode.
you
Um,
do you can
what
invert it and rotate the hue by 180 degrees, and then it's pretty much there.
Nice. Yeah. Whenever you open the PR or get that going, obviously let us know. I just want to make sure that I know because I think I have some of these assets still in Excalibur, and it'd be great to make them something that doesn't like I think I keep sharing screen and then unsharing screen because I know that it doesn't show everybody, but like this is what it looks like here, and I did the background here is like this gray because when you go into dark mode, like that's acceptable. But I would love it if it was a little more color corrected and all of that.
Yeah, I'll bring you in a couple of days.
Cool. Awesome, Nick.
Well
Thank
then.
you. Thank you so much. This is really cool.
Very welcome.
Wow. That was great. What a nice surprise. Thank you again, Bailey and Nick.
I didn't do anything. I'm just an instigator.
All right, folks. Well, unless there are other questions on the TypeScript demo or kind of what we talked about so far, I'll pause for dramatic effect. We can go ahead and get into the next section in the call. We've got two discussion items. First off is a roadmap check-in. Hopefully this is all still an appropriate size and everything. But what I really want to make sure that we're doing as we push towards 1.0 in the wasmCloud org, which is just going to be like a 1.0 for our runtime, is make sure we keep coming back to this roadmap. And this is, I've talked about it in previous calls, but just for folks who are new, I will send the link. But since everything here, and I touched actually a little bit on it in our roadmap page in the documentation, which I will also send in the chat. A lot of the work, oh wait, that's on Nick's page, but that's the right one. Okay, you can look at that one and then you can see all the cool stuff too. Essentially a lot of the tasks that are on the wasmCloud roadmap right now are very you can take them in a very Kanban style method. They don't have a lot of interdependencies. So you can, complete the individual tasks. And the ones that do have dependencies, we're still kind of spiking out in the wasmCloud org maintainers or host maintainer side. There are a couple big ones that, that we'll get on here and properly mark. But in general, a lot of our new RFCs and things that we've identified for 1.0 but haven't quite given enough information to work on now go into triage. Under ready for work, I think that this one is actually better in triage. Under ready for work are RFCs or issues that are available for people to take. So for example, I think this one might have the good first issue. No, not quite. What I want to make sure is that anybody who's looking to contribute to this milestone can take a look at this ready for work tab and see things that are good to go. Got some in progress things. Mostly I have this tab to denote when somebody has taken an issue and has started working on it just to make sure that we don't duplicate any efforts. And then we've got a couple things that are completed and then a couple blocked things that depend on other efforts. So these are the types of things that we're still kind of spiking out and making sure that we organize properly at an organization level. So this is a pretty good look at the current roadmap. As far as what we have going on in progress, this top level feature here, which has kind of been being tackled by myself and looks like another GitHub user was taking a look at this. We are very close to finishing this one up. We just merged a PR this morning that adds the actor scaled event, and this really simplifies the way that we are that we're sending events based on what happened in the wasmCloud system. We used to say, hey, this many actors started, and here's 10 events to show that they all started. And now we just have this one actor scaled event, which will output the actor and then how many instances it could handle at a max level of concurrency. What was previously kind of our count. So we had this nice little one event that's already merged. And the only thing left to do on this is when we release the next version of wasmCloud, we can go in and clean up the remaining references to these events. As we're moving towards 1.0 with minor versions, we're always going to kind of guarantee backwards compatibility as much as we can for one minor version, but it's all kind of leading up to, of course, a 1.0 release where those things are not changing based on minor versions. They are more stable. Other than that, we're making really awesome progress towards this long-standing RFC on defining all of our interfaces with WIT. If you look in the wasmCloud repository, you won't find any Smithy interfaces. So by and large, all over the place, we are using WIT. Again, another shout out to Victor, who has been working on translating our first-party capability providers from using Smithy and WasmBus RPC-based tooling to the provider SDK, which is very kind of purely built for generating, little handlers and types from WIT interfaces. And I'll have to double check, but I think that's pretty close to being done. The capability providers using WIT for their interfaces, very close. So this one is moving along great. And then last but certainly not least, we have a great RFC, which Patrick put in a few months ago on host metrics. And I know that on the Cosmonic side, Dan Norris is looking at extending this RFC. But just to give folks a heads up, we're essentially going to be implementing the 3 different pillars of OTel observability in wasmCloud. We already have traces, and those are being exported to the OTel URL or the exporter URL. We actually already have logs also, we're just not exporting them. So that's a super easy task. We just export all those logs. And the last piece is metrics, and that will let us release wasmCloud 1.0 with the kind of 3-pronged, 3 pillars, whatever, of observability for wasmCloud. So those would be really great things. This RFC is in progress. All right. Well, happy to answer any questions that you all have. But what I really want to do from here on out is if there are major changes in the roadmap, if things make really great progress, we start closing things out, I will bring it up in the community meeting. But I won't spend every community meeting just going over the roadmap. Of course, if we run out of time, we can always push those things to async in Slack. Okay, I will continue droning for just a few more minutes because I want to talk about one of the more significant features of the RFCs that's ready for work now. At least I think so. I've asked for just a little bit more feedback, and that is formalizing the control interface. We talked a little bit about our control interface protocol. We have tons of different subjects that we use to communicate between clients and a wasmCloud host to say, hey, go start this actor, go scale this actor, update, do things with providers, links, all of those things. They're all laid out in this table. And essentially, this RFC is all about proposing a common format, and that both kind of protects us from backwards incompatible changes when we look forward at a 1.0, and puts it in a nice format that allows you to do things like subscribe. And if you're new to the NATS ecosystem, this may sound a little bit more out there, but essentially you can listen on the control interface topics to say, be interested in all things that modify links or all things that modify a single host by subscribing with a wildcard. So this should be really good. Ask for one more little bit of feedback, but I specifically wanted to bring attention to this, even though this is likely to be mostly an internal change. It is a pretty large set of breaking changes because this is the protocol that like Wash and wasmCloud and Wadum use to communicate with each other. So a heads up for this one, we may have some notes for folks on, migrating from one version to the next, but this should be a fun one. We're doing the thing. Okay, I think that was all that I wanted to talk about on the roadmap and significant issue side. Any folks have questions?
Welcome.
I think that was a hot mic, but I'm not sure. Just mute you, Connor, just in case. Okay. All right, folks. Well, then I think that runs to the end of our scheduled demos and discussion. I wanted to call out one specific big thing in the WebAssembly ecosystem, and that is that the vote for WASI Preview 2 to officially be cut has just been pushed back 2 weeks. And that is based on getting the second reference implementation for the WASI Preview 2 proposal, which is going to be in Node.js. So essentially, we have wasmTime as an engine, as an implementation, and that's what we use under wasmCloud. But the standards body wants two reference implementations to essentially make sure that things aren't implementation specific. They make sense. They can be implemented in different languages in different ways. So we have pushed that back, but we are incredibly close. And something that has essentially moved this deadline before comes to like changing WIT interfaces and changing types and standards inside of like what we'll use to communicate with actor components. But that actually isn't changing at all here. So that is not the reason why we are waiting. And when I say we, I mean the broader WebAssembly community and the Bytecode Alliance. Why Preview 2 is going to get pushed back just 2 more weeks. We want that second implementation so that we can run components in Node also, which would be, it's going to be pretty cool. I think that is it's a significant thing for wasmCloud because WASI Preview 2 is what we plan to cut wasmCloud 1.0 on top of. Any questions there or further clarification? Awesome. Let's go. Very close. Okay. Last little thing before I want to open it up for all questions, comments, concerns. I just want to do a little bit of a rundown on events that are coming up or things that you may be interested in tuning into. The first one, our very own Bailey and Liam are going to be doing essentially an innovation coffee chat with the ARM folks here in 7 days. Look at that. And it'll be right before the wasmCloud community call. So you can go listen to this and then come hang out. Oh, wait, no, that's a lie. It's on Thursday. Okay. Check the dates before you go see it, but you should do both either way. This one should be a lot of fun. As you can see, people are already waiting for this one, which is really exciting, even though it's a week away. So that one should be fun. There's also going to be a WebAssembly / WASM meetup in New York. So this is, I think, kind of co-located with the NYC Kubernetes meetup, which I went to last year and was a ton of fun. I'll be sad to miss this one, but we got a couple people like our very own Bailey Hayes, and then Chris Mattson from Fermion and Oscar Spencer from F5 Nginx. We're doing a lot of talk about WASM. So if you are an easy train ride away or actually located in the New York area, you should check this out. I think there's still 3 spots left. So very exclusive event. Grab your ticket now while you can. Moving forward from there, from the kind of virtual and more personal meetups, we've got a couple big things starting. Is this the wrong thing? Yep. We're going in event order here, so I'm going to do this one first. wasm.io, which is going to be in Barcelona from the 14th to the 15th of March. They are slowly releasing talks and the schedule here. And if you take a look at the confirmed sessions, we don't have a ton. Yeah, we don't have all of them, but we do have a awesome panel that's going to include, again, Bailey, Oscar Spencer, Marcin Colney, and Saul Cabrera. So should be really fun to have these. I apologize if I mess up any folks' names there. But we also have a talk that I'm very excited for from Luke with a stream of consciousness on the future of native async and the component model. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Bring your pen and pencils and follow along. Got a talk on Kotlin, wasm at Google, a couple of workshops, all those things. So keep an eye on this one as the schedule finalizes. I think a lot of these were added actually yesterday, so they're kind of going through and approving and all that. Then last but certainly not least, co-located with the KubeCon, Cloud Native Con in Europe, or this year in Paris, there's going to be Cloud Native WASM Day EU. I don't believe this schedule is out, but I think it might get finalized today. I think folks who have talks accepted, or no matter what the status of your thing, should have been notified by now. Hopefully, I'm not making that information up. But the schedule should be out here pretty soon for this one. I know a lot of us folks on the wasmCloud side are going to be in Europe for this. So if you are across the pond or close to Paris, please feel free to swing by and let us know. We'll do a couple more call outs in the Slack and everything as we get closer. But we'd love to meet contributors and community members in person when we can. Whew. Okay, lots of fun events coming up. I'm sure we'll keep doing kind of a touch base as we get closer and closer with these things. But now that officially reaches the end of what I had on the agenda today. So I'll just go ahead and open the floor for everyone. This is just open time. Feel free to raise your hand for any discussion items, questions, comments on, it can be for wasmCloud or just general WebAssembly ecosystem as well. Yeah, Victor.
Yeah, first of all, I make sure that I'm not Victor. Or don't say I don't take it. He's an expert. I'm a beginner. So I have a question. I just posted several links. My understanding, those are the white paper, which is really what the WASM component model is based on. So want to find out. So sounds like it's a lot different. The security model is a lot different. The component looks like quite different from regular tech stack. So how does it impact the way the security is implemented? Any particular use cases because of those new type of a component technology?
Yeah, it's a great question. And though I haven't read the white papers that you specifically linked, I think it's really important to call out that the security model, both for wasmCloud and WASM components, starts with an allow nothing by default model of compute. I think that it's really important in that last paper that you sent on capability-based security as a huge foundation for the security model here. Everything that the WebAssembly component is going to do outside of little computations in its own linear memory has to be specifically specified as an import from the host or an export for the host to call. And this kind of capability-driven security model is the same one that works really, really well for people who are working on, on their phone or in the browser, where you visit a web page and it says, hey, can I use your webcam? And that's one of the inspirations for the security of this, like this capability-driven security, where kind of denying everything by default really lets you have tight control over the security of an application component and not have to essentially layer on a bunch of different layers to prevent things from happening. I think it's worth mentioning as well that for kind of traditionally running wasmCloud actors, you essentially have one little component that is communicating back and forth with wasmCloud, and that's all the same capability-driven model. But with the component model and the way that you can compose different components together, the same kind of capability-driven security is enforced there. And you may see a term come up across the ecosystem of share nothing linking, where those components are actually not, sharing things between each other. So, that trust boundary between the two components is something that's still pretty strictly enforced.
So the reason I bring that is the contain and the container Kubernetes containers for the authentication authorization, including the attribute authorization, is quite mature. And so with this component model, what is there any reference, any material related to how this enable more different use cases, different from containers?
Totally. So I'm gonna shamelessly just reference a talk that I gave. So please forgive me for that. But I have diagrams and I think they're really helpful. I gave this talk with Kate Goldenring, who also works on a WebAssembly paths, but not wasmCloud. She works on Spin. And we sort of discussed all of the new unique capabilities effectively. Capabilities pretty overloaded here. Properties that you get out of the WebAssembly component model. And so what's new, right? One thing that isn't quite there for other there are strategies, but they're all kind of all bad, is being able to combine different languages together. So that's like one key one here so that I can plug them together. But also the important part here is that they're also statically defined. Like I have really well-defined, strict typed APIs that are this boundary here. And what is really interesting about that is when I combine them together, I have my own separate memory. So what is happening in that Go component? That Go component can only talk to this Rust component here through those APIs. There's no like global that it can get overridden. There's no all of the different like top OWASP top 10 issues typically aren't going to show up here because there's no way that I can do some type of double after free or Stack Overflow to get at memory that I'm not supposed to have. And so we actually went through a few different use cases that are new that I think developers should be really excited about. And so we use this example of an authentication middleware component as the piece that you slot in. And so you're totally right. The strategies that we've come up with for doing like OAuth, that's specifically what this component does, that's all well defined. And so you take a component that uses like your typical JOT definition for different things, and this be your piece that defines how you do authentication, but my business logic does not care really, other than it knows it needs to be authenticated and that part needs to be handled. But really, I can have a component that's just focused on my logic, and then I can have another component that basically most people pull in. Like you can imagine this being equivalent to like Go Chi, or depending on what language ecosystem you're in, there's like a de facto like language or framework that you use for all of these. Now imagine one that works for every language everywhere. And so when there's a problem with that one, and that's what we were showing in this example, you no longer have to rebuild your business logic component. The only thing you have to do is relink them together. And that's something that you can actually do at runtime. But what's really cool is that all of that is also done statically. So all of these different types of issues can be analyzed by either the host platform, by a registry, by many other different types in a totally different way that we're not quite able to do when we break apart containers. For example, we spend a lot of different compute and a lot of money trying to analyze existing containers and all the layers and the things that are bundled all together in them. Whereas this is a different way of representing what each part of my application does. Now, I also posted in the chat, I sent you the article that Luke Wagner, who's largely, I would say, the main designer behind the component model for WASM. He actually refers to this 1966 paper as the main source of his innovation for doing this with the component model. He totally references the other ones that you added too, but he actually sat down and talked to folks and got is kind of like, you know what, I realize that it is the year 2024 now. Didn't get it wrong, right, Brooks? Like you said at the beginning of the call. But at the end of the day, that we're still trying to find better ways to solve these different types of problems. And what we were missing all along between like WASI Preview 1 and then moving to Preview 2 was really being able to have statically defined modular interfaces that were able to compose together across language boundaries. And once you have those key superpowers, you get a totally new way of having a big capability-based ecosystem.
Thank you. So this is all within the WASM ecosystem itself. What about using leveraging external authentication authorization mechanism? Does that change?
It doesn't really change beyond you would define that API, right? You would want that to be part of, say, my authentication middleware component. It's talking to remote services. Whether or not those are also components themselves is actually irrelevant to that component. It just knows that it's making these basically REST requests over WASI HTTP.
So when it comes to leveraging external authentication authorization mechanism, it doesn't change. Okay. I also see that the YouTube has been posted. Yeah, thank you. I will watch that.
Yeah, there was so much more detail I wanted to add there. So if you have more questions, I'd love to chat on Slack.
If you are interested in more information on security, there were a couple other really good talks from this WASM Day, the one that's linked in the playlist in North America 2023 of last year. Um, A Love Letter to Isolation by Kelly Shortridge from
Oh,
Fastly
yeah.
was really, really good. That was one of my favorite talks. There was another one, I think Call Me by Your Name did a really deep dive into the security, like a low level security of the WebAssembly guest process. So those are two other really good talks that I would highly recommend.
Also, I'm going to throw in another one here. Nick Fitzgerald's talk on security and correctness inside WasmTime. You know, WasmTime is the runtime that we use, and we leverage a lot of that. And Nick serves on the technical steering committee with me on the Bytecode Alliance. I love that guy. But I basically like kept prodding him to give this talk because so often I see people evaluate WebAssembly runtimes and they're not really evaluating them on the right criteria. And so that talk lays out all the things that you really need to expect out of your WebAssembly runtime.
Thank you so much, Victor Liu, for the question. I hope you don't mind getting, after asking a question, we get really excited about this type of stuff. So we'll probably we'll be sending everybody links whenever a different topic comes up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I want to go to sleep today, but like you're mentioning too many cool things. Bailey, link the last one you say about the runtime.
Okay, I did link his blog post, just so that
great.
he could it says Fitzgerald
Oh,
Nick.
got it. It's this one. Okay.
And his GitHub is Fitzgen if you want to find him there that way. And he's really easy to catch over on Zulip. He actually he has another Zulip post that I've been trying to get him to turn into one of his blog posts. So I'm gonna tell him that I like hyped his blog, so now he should totally do this. Where he walks through the process of like, hey, you want to add components to your runtime? Like, it was pretty long. It was like a 10-step process, but that was it, right? Like describing how you can link together these components at a really low level in terms of basically WebAssembly module linking with shared memory. It's the shared memory feature of basically the WebAssembly core specification where a lot of that magic happens in the runtime layer. And then he talked about how it works through the different trampolines that are inside WasmTime.
Yeah.
Really
are we
good stuff.
recording this, by the way, or no?
Oh, yeah, I think so. Sorry. Oh, yeah,
Okay,
I'm just dumping all my favorite stuff now.
Yeah. I don't want to be taking the recording time for a question I have, but I was trying to get into that topic, Bailey, on top of Elixir. I know you move away from Elixir, but for me, I'm like, okay, what exactly was the limitation in Erlang that didn't allow you to actually create the runtime without wasttime? Let's say we were okay re-implementing wasttime inside Erlang. Because for me, it was like, damn, the platform is a perfect platform to be this control plane of things and runtime to be built upon. So I'm getting into that rabbit hole now.
Okay, all right, yeah, no, I think that there's not a true technical limitation. It's more about a who's working on what and where the friction is limitation. So within the Bytecode Alliance, your WebAssembly runtime, obviously, like that's going to be like your spine of the whole project. And ours is wasmTime, written in Rust, but we contribute largely upstream as well, right? As a key part of that, and trying to grow that upstream piece so that we get what we need within our distributed application use case. And so we're already going to have to be Rust agents to do that part. Then the other aspect is the language binding generators are also in Rust. So Victor wrote the provider SDK and then has converted, all the providers to WIT, and then all that's Rust, right? So at the end of the day, the ecosystem for a lot of the key pieces that at least this team requires to build and grow is going to be Rust based. Could you do it? Totally, though. I would love to see it.
I just want to learn to see the technicality, enough to understand the complexity, and then get out and say, you know what, and I see where the rabbit hole ends. One thing, Bailey, I don't know if in the ecosystem right now we have like I'm gonna call it package manager, but I don't want that. But a marketplace where we could find these components, because now we're talking about every single ecosystem have their own package manager and their own way to find packages and whatnot. So now I feel kind of like, all right, is anybody out there already working a component I may need? For example, authorization, or a middleware for authenticating with auths 2 or something like that.
Yes. Yes,
And
1,000 times. There are a lot of different folks working on related pieces here. If you want to follow the work, you can follow Taylor Thomas, our wasmCloud maintainer. He's been helping lead up inside the WASM working group for making sure that the OCI artifact spec definition supports a component type. And then additionally within that, how do we have the ability to basically discover and index components? Now, there was also a project within the Bytecode Alliance for, it's a special interest group, the registry special interest group. And there's a tool called WARG, WebAssembly Registry. And our game plan right now is to basically have that backed, hopefully by GitHub packages or another OCI content store. But let's make sure we separate between the difference between a deployment registry and a developer registry. The big brain idea here is that we're solving also the development registry side, which means I'm hacking on my own component. You're developing in, let's say, Rust, and then all of a sudden you're like, I need a component that handles my authentication, right? So at that point, I just, in my cargo toml, or if I'm doing something with TypeScript, and we did that demo earlier, I just add that to my package JSON, right? And it natively knows how to go and fetch that component. That's the direction we're trying to head. And that's why you would want a tool like WARG, because you're not going to expect everybody to work with, like, let's say Docker or some other direct OCI tool. You're going to expect people to work with their native tools. So how do you define a protocol, basically, and or CLI that lets you kind of solve that problem in a component native way? Hey, Vance, I saw your hand up.
We've kind of moved on. Just the whole Erlang thing. The main point about all of that was that the previous Elixir implementation forced all of the interaction through NATs anyway. So it really doesn't matter. We haven't lost anything in terms of being an Erlang developer because it was never there.
It's true. And
Yeah.
we were embedding with Rustler, so all the good stuff was still in Rust anyways.
Right, but that is my curiosity, Vince. Is like, let's say you remove Rustler and the Rust aspect and wasmTime, why wasn't capable Erlang itself as a runtime? That's my curiosity where it comes. Like, okay, because I see a reliable system to build upon, so I'm just curious.
Well, and as we discussed in a private chat some time ago, my plan, if I execute it, is really just to implement a good NATS client in Erlang and get that distribution layer, and then we have exactly what we need. We can combine those distribution methods and do everything we need to do.
Yeah, yep. Vince, have you seen the GNAT Oh, wait, that is actually Elixir.
Yeah, no,
Right?
there's a NAT client
Okay.
there's at least one NAT client available, but it's kind of a philosophy in Erlang. You look at things, and if they're not simple enough, you implement them yourselves because it's not that difficult. So rather than use some other application just as a shim to create what we really need, I was just looking at implementing the whole thing.
Makes sense. Well, if you come up with something really good, I mean, we have tons of connections and friends over on the NAT side. They may be interested in taking that as a part of upstream. No pressure there. Just wanted to throw that out
Okay.
there. Um, yeah, I raised my hand originally just to touch on I guess a comment that I put out, and then continuing from Vance's thought that if there was, first of all, there's like a sufficiently motivated team working in Elixir that wanted to implement the WebAssembly component model in Elixir or Erlang. It's totally possible, you know. We're limited here mostly by time and reason. Um, but it is also to Vance's point when it comes to implementation in Elixir, how we were using NATS as the transport protocol anyways. I think that there's a parallel universe where a very interesting project is implementing the clustering and message passing and all of that we do. But instead of using NATs, using OTP fundamentals, you use a GIN server actor, and when you do a call, a distributed call, you're calling the PID of the GIN server, and that's going over, native Erlang clustering. That does, we've talked, I think, at length enough about why we use NATs. Erlang clustering is its own strategy, just like any networking thing. We've experimented with it before, like when Wadham had an Elixir side, and even on the Cosmonic side where we use Elixir for more than just wasmCloud, the clustering there is um, very robust, but again, just really good when you know where you're going to deploy to, and really frictionful when you try to hand it to somebody who's never used it before.
Yeah, so for me, Brooke, is like after the conversation the last time that we talked about, the SLAs between the event sourcing component or whatever, right? And I wanted to run it in my host itself, right, as close as possible. My curiosity now goes from I use Erlang and Elixir because that's what I'm familiar with, but I want to create something extremely specialized that was only for the event sourcing stack. So there's no NATs, there's nothing now that is just gRPC into it or HTTP, doesn't really matter. Then that is gonna have like a list of modules load into memory to find which command handler to run, and then reverse dependency the computation back to the WASM, because that's what I wanted, right? And that's what I do not enjoy right now in my stack. The stack, the command handler in the event sourcing sense, Elixir is a lot of work for trivial stuff because I don't have types, and like the language itself is not friendly for the stuff I'm doing, which is a lot of message passing with structured data. I'm not so that's where my curiosity comes. Like, okay, I just want to load that module into my memory buffer of the WASM, find it there, run it. But more things are done through like this WASTime rustler. Like, I don't want that. I want to run it from Erlang directly.
Well, I know that we are at the end of our scheduled time, so I'll leave us with a bomb of, wow, wouldn't it be really awesome if we had this language agnostic binary format that we could target and use for all of the situations that we want to code for exactly what that particular programming language or framework is best at. Um, that would be really awesome. We call it like cloud assembly or something. Who knows? Um, WebAssembly. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the wasmCloud community call today. I'll go ahead and stop recording. I think I can hang out for another minute or two afterwards, but I think other than that, we'll see you next week. I'll post the agenda notes in Slack, and if you all have suggestions for a demo you'd like to show off or something you'd like to discuss next time, please just let me know. Thanks, folks. Wait, I can't stop it.